Camera, set, go.
Welcome friends and future colleagues to a new and reinvented Law Guest. You have come to the most interesting legal platform for talk shows and more. We give you candid talks with people who you look up to. So I'm your host for today, Muskan Naran. I'm a second year law student from DY Patil University. We have with us today Advocate Bapoo M. Malcolm, sir. So he's a practicing lawyer and impaneled arbitrator at Bombay High Court in Mumbai. His career started in 2006 in Bombay, and now he has been in this field for 14 years. So he got his degree from KC Law College in Bombay in BA LLB. He is also the founder of Indian Professional Cyclists Association. I'm so glad to have you on the show, sir. Thank you so much for coming.
God bless you. At long last, we are meeting.
Yes, sir. It was a much awaited meeting, sir. So, actually, we always try to keep the show a little candid. Whatever stories that come into your mind that you want to share or anything about your life, it will be really appreciated.
In other words, you are going to cross-examine me.
No, sir. So I'm not in a position to. That's the second year
In
law
which case, I shall answer yes, no, I do not know. And one more, or maybe. Fair enough.
Right.
Isn't that cross-examination?
Right, sir. But actually, this is a talk show. I would prefer that we just talk through everything. So, sir,
You won't use it.
Yes, sir.
You won't use it against me in a court of law.
Sir, I just want a
Whatever I say will be taken down. No, okay, fair enough.
whatever you
Tell
say
me.
will be on YouTube forever. So I think, so sir, I usually start with the question that why did you decide to choose law?
Just before we started, I told you that those are things, if you ask me, you need 24 hours for an answer.
Right.
To put it shortly, I had very close friends who had studied law but not practiced. Many years ago, I'm talking of the 60s and 70s. And I was interested in law right from school days. I had read a book. I asked people to read it. It's a beautiful book. Unfortunately, not easily available. Court of Last Resort. I read it when I was about 15 or so.
Right.
I was at school, just out of school. No, I was at school. And it got me interested in law because that book talked about people who were incarcerated. Some of them were even executed on false evidence.
Right.
And you must have heard of Earl Stanley Gardner. He used to write those Perry Mason books.
Right, sir.
Those were, of course, fiction, but this book was fact, absolute fact. He and a couple of others had got together to try and get people out of prison, at least those who were still alive and not executed, who were imprisoned on false evidence, false witnesses. It got me very interested in law. Friends of mine, I was then more interested in engineering, my job, this, that, and the other. Friends of mine were doing law. Then in 1984, my landlord served me a notice.
Okay.
Calling me an unauthorized occupant in the flat in which I was born 33 years prior to that. It was no case.
Right.
It was no case. So naturally, I handed it over to a lawyer, an excellent lawyer, Bharat Doria. In fact, I got a call from him half an hour back and I said, I'm having a webinar, so call me later.
Right.
And I was served with a plaint. I'd never seen a plaint in my life before. And it was what I call solicitor language, convoluted, and you could make some sense of it, but that was not the way to write.
Right.
And Mr. Doria said, now we have to answer this, called a written statement. That's the first time I heard was written statement.
Right.
Fair enough. I still call it a defense statement because a written statement can be anything.
Right.
Anyway, we started on that, and I said, Mr. Doria, I am not going to answer this, nor allow you to answer this in this language. He said, we will answer them in simple, plain English.
Mm-hmm.
So Mr. Doria said, okay, you make the draft. And from that day onwards, I have been making each and every one of my pleadings, including those for my clients, in just plain, simple language. No
Right.
party of the first part, no party of the second part, no whereas, no this, no that, comma, all thing, it's all out. Just a plain. Now, 84, I was, I had a factory, engineering factory, very close by where I'm stuck just now. And I was more involved in that. Two or three personal things happened in 93. My mother was diagnosed with a very terminal disease.
Okay.
And the doctors gave her maximum 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
But if you looked at her hand, and her palm showed that she would be around for at least 5 or 7 years more.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor told us at that time he was the second best in the world in that, Dr. Wadia. He mentioned that mummy will need nothing more than nursing care and it will be downhill all the way.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very difficult for me to run a factory 200 kilometers away and be at home.
Mm-hmm.
And to make matters worse, I contracted TB.
Oh.
And mummy was almost paralyzed. I was down with TB.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thought that I would, I would beat mummy to the grave.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to shut shop. The factory had to be shut down, losing a lot of money. And mummy passed away in 99. Till the last day, even though she could not move her limbs,
Mm-hmm.
she could speak. Till nearly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, she could speak. 12 hours before she passed away.
Mm-hmm.
She used to give tuitions.
Right.
When she passed away in January,
Mm-hmm.
SSC examinations were 2 months away, so I had to take over.
Mm-hmm.
I had almost recovered from my TB. It was in 96, so I had almost recovered by 99. And after that, what I wanted to do previously, when mummy was diagnosed in 93, internet had just come in.
Right.
And I thought that if I have to sit next to her,
Mm-hmm.
I will do legal drafting. But nobody pays you for legal drafting unless you have an LLB.
Okay. Right.
So I thought that I might as well do my LLB.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even have the certificate. So one day I asked one of my students, I said, I'm not going to let you go home until those certificates are found. And we found a whole bunch of certificates which had been kept away. Hadn't touched them in years. Mind you, I'd done my graduation in 74 and etc. So then I decided that now I got my certificates, let me go and do my LLB. I could do drafting and earn some money.
Right.
So in 2002, I joined KC College.
Mm-hmm.
Met my wife then.
Wow.
We married in 2003.
Oh, wow.
Went, wow, I'll call her over. Sweetheart, you know, I'll call her over.
That's so beautiful.
She's monitoring everything. She says, how come you speak to so many girls all the time?
Okay. She has no threat here.
That's my wife,
Hello, ma'am.
Devya.
Hello, how do you do?
She's
I'm
an
good,
advocate.
ma'am.
Don't be careful what you say.
Right, sir. I'll be careful. So I'm
Yeah,
so
you be.
ma'am, I'm Muskan Narang.
So
Thank you so
anyway,
much for coming on the show.
in 2006 we got through LLB.
Right.
The original intention was that I would draft and she would do the litigation work. That was the original idea.
Right.
And that is how we went through college. But she had got a job by then
Right.
in a firm that was doing real estate. In fact, since that day, she's been in real estate till today, and without a measure of doubt, I personally feel she's the best in real estate in Bombay now. She spent 14 years doing nothing but real estate.
Wow.
Lots of things. Anyway, so she was because she was into real estate, she was doing the drafting. And then a friend of mine came, a very old client of mine who I'd known for 40 years. He came over and gave me a bunch of papers and said, I received this from the High Court. I want you to handle it. Now, I wasn't going to take my son out because we were into Vastu Shastra and it was a very big proposition. So we didn't want to disturb that.
Okay.
And then drafting would have been. He said, I don't have my son. And he says, get one. I said, I don't have the money for that. How much will it cost? I said, 3,000. I said, I don't have the money. He said, I'll pay it. I don't have the books. He said, I'll buy the books.
Right.
I don't have a gown. So he said, how much does that cost? I said, maybe 700-800 rupees. I think it was 600 then.
Right.
I'll buy a gown. I did not have the heart to tell him to buy me the badges, which would have cost 10 rupees more. But he then said that if you don't defend me, I will let it go undefended.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it was more or less a threat.
Right.
So I had to go and get my son. And we won the case in about 10-15 minutes.
Wow.
Where it was dismissed. And the rest is a long story. So Livia is doing the drafting and I'm doing the litigation.
Right. So, sir, how have been these 14 years for you?
Oh, very interesting, very interesting. Very interesting. I didn't lose a single case for nearly more than 8 years, and that too. Unfortunately, my client gave me a forged document and we relied on it. Anyway, never rely on what the clients give you. Make sure that whatever it is.
So, sir,
yeah, tell me.
So, what excites you about law? What is that something that you wake up in the morning and you feel energized about?
You get up in the morning and the first thing you say is, I am going to win. In fact, this case that I was talking to you about, the day I left home that morning, I mentioned to Divya, I said, this is the first case I'm going to lose. Because the client was an advocate. And I was given 100 pages of written of final arguments. No judge wants to read that. Exactly. With some 40 or 50 citations, this, that, and the other. So that sort of thing does not excite me. If clients want to lie in court, I just give up the case. I take your papers. I'm not going to let you lie in court.
Right.
One fellow told me, "Tu mera advocate hai." I said, yeah, that's exactly why I'm stopping you. I have a duty to the court also. Right. Anyway, he took away his papers, thank goodness. But the first thing that you do is when you get up in the morning and you are going to court, which of course doesn't happen every day, you go with the intention of winning. That's what excites you the most.
Right.
After all, you're not interested in anything else but making sure your client succeeds.
Right. So, what is something that you are feeling motivated about whenever you wake up in the morning? You're like, okay, you want to win a case, but what is that thing about litigation that you feel that is the most exciting? Except there are many other fields in law.
For that, you need a lot of preparation. The 10 minutes that you are in the theater, which is the court, there's just 10 minutes. It's actually just show. The clients are very happy when you start arguing, or if you can argue for an hour or two, which I never do. But those 10 minutes got maybe 50, 100 hours of preparation behind them. And on your way to court since morning, you start playing. See, this is what happens when you are in sports. you replay the race in your mind
Right.
the whole week,
Wow.
whole distance, where it is, what will be. So here you replay the whole case in your mind. Think of what the other party is going to say, how they will counter you, and whether you have counter arguments for that.
Right.
Think of whatever they have written in either all their pleadings. Each and every word has to be read, underlined, marked, tagged, flagged, all sorts of things, and you make your notes on the very last page so
Right.
that you are ready with all the counter arguments that they might have.
Right.
And you have got to be extremely quick in answering.
Right.
If you find that they are making a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
pounce on them immediately.
Okay.
But how will you be prepared for that? By playing it over in your mind earlier, thinking what the other side is going to do.
Right.
About a couple of years back, we had a case in the High Court. The, uh, the plaintiff had filed a case against uh, three, three defendants. My client, one, his brother, two, and the society, three.
Right.
Now it was obvious that the two brothers were in collusion.
Mm.
So when I got up to argue, I told the judge, I said, now normally in court, on the right-hand side of the judge is the plaintiff. They don't follow that rule anymore. Originally, many years ago,
Right.
30, 40 years ago, it used to be that. But now everybody gets up and it's a jungle. But normally when I'm on the defense, which I usually am, I'm on the left hand of the judge.
Right.
So I was sitting on the left-hand side of the judge, and next to me was the defendant number two, the brother. And then, so the plaintiff argued, and then I had to get up because I was defendant number one.
Right.
And I said, my lord, defendant number two is on my right. I
Mm-hmm.
think he should be on my left. In other words, they are colluding.
Right.
The judge immediately snapped that up and said, Mr. Malcolm,
Mm-hmm.
he might be on your right physically,
Mm-hmm.
but he's on your left mentally.
Wow.
It was enough to listen. For the last 2 years, nothing has happened. We are merrily enjoying the property. No one has touched us.
Right.
So what happens is, I mean, just one sentence. I didn't argue anything.
Mm-hmm.
It was just one sentence that they are colluding, that this case has got no value.
Right.
Now, I could have argued for an hour and come to the same conclusion. But because I was prepared that the first chance I get, I will draw the attention to the court that they are colluding.
Right.
By the way, the brother who was colluding and my client and I usually used to have drinks together when my client used to come over from America.
Okay.
So anyway, I knew the guy very well.
Mm-hmm.
So this was it. Now, if I were not prepared, I would not have been able to finish off the matter in a minute or two.
Right. Right.
It's because you play the whole thing over in your mind, and unless you do that, see, when a advocate has 10 cases and 12 cases a day, he cannot do this. It's
Right.
impossible.
Mm-hmm.
They run from one court to the other, and they really don't know what they're doing.
Right.
You have to take more than, say, maximum 3 cases a day, but don't take more than that. You won't be able to do justice to your client.
Right. Okay. So, sir, you said a little about the theatrics of the court. So, sir, how have your experience been to actually come there, experience it, and then adapt to it?
Oh, quite a number of things. Quite a number of court is theater, and court is it's like an adda where you discuss things,
Right.
especially after the writing of the court. There are so many things you can discuss with the judge and come to know how things work. One day we had a very, I mean, you might find them. I might write about them one of these days. I had a client, very extremely good looking girl, extremely good looking. She was married outside her community.
Okay.
And because of that,
Mm-hmm.
the trustees had filed a case against her for eviction.
Okay.
It was pure harassment.
Right. Right.
So, and they didn't come to, after filing the case and we having filed our written statement, they did not come to the court. They did not come to the court for 10 times in a row.
Okay.
And I asked the judge to dismiss the case
Mm-hmm.
because every fortnight we would go to the court. It was almost a year since they had filed the complaint, and no one was turning up. Once or twice they might have done it, but 10 times in a row they had not.
Right.
So I asked for dismissal. Even after asking for dismissal, they did not turn up. Or they would send somebody or the other to keep track of what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So finally the case was dismissed and the judge said, why did they file this case then, if they're not coming to court? I explained to the judge, I said, that you see that very beautiful girl behind me?
Right.
She's married to a Parsi,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the only reason, no other reason. He
Right.
said, but I thought that Parsis were not allowed to marry outside their religion.
Right.
I said, my lady, I am married to a non-Parsi.
Right.
So she says, are you a Parsi? So I turned my head around like that and pointed to my nose.
Right.
You know what the judge said? You know what she said? I have a big nose too.
Wow.
So I told her, I said, my lady, in that competition, you are nowhere.
Oh, wow.
So
Right.
it's theater.
Right.
It's theater. Now I give you the other example of the judge saying
Right.
that, you know,
Yes.
physically is on your right, but mentally is on your left.
Right.
So quite a number of judges have quite a good sense of humor. I mean,
Right.
they also have to go through a lot of stuff every day.
Right.
So these sort of things happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We had another case where the senior, it's what, 120-30 kilometers from Bombay.
Okay.
My client is 5 years older than I, 6 years older than I. She's 85.
Okay.
And then naturally, for us to travel all that distance is difficult. I mean, the idea is to make us travel and get tired. Anyway, we don't get tired.
Right.
So that I haven't seen the advocate in nearly 3 years. Huh? He sent somebody or the other.
Right.
So one day one lady came up and I said, may I know your name? So she gave me her name, etc., etc. And in passing, I said, okay, fair enough. If you feel that your people cannot come, we take a long adjournment. Maybe. No, but I'm pregnant.
Okay.
I won't be able to come in February or whatever.
Mm.
I mentioned to the judge, I said, the lady is expecting the arrival of the stork. So either we finish
Right.
off the matter today or we'll have to wait for quite some time.
Mm.
So the judge also, he smiled and he said, fair enough. We'll give her time.
Right.
After she left and the court rose, I asked him, I said, why is it that this advocate on record does not come and send somebody else all the time, especially when what they call the juniors, I don't like to use that word,
Mm.
when the juniors are so ill prepared, when they are so ill prepared.
Mm.
So he says, my experience is different. When I joined a senior advocate, on my very first day, he gave me a file and said, Kulkarni, take this,
Right.
read it, appear in court tomorrow.
Mm.
So he was thrown in at the deep end and obviously he enjoyed it.
Right.
Quite a lot of things happen in court.
Right. So, sir, is there in the
But
court,
well,
is there any kind of hierarchy that happens, like relating to lawyers being there? Is there any kind of hierarchy or some kind of system that is followed in the court, which is not officially?
I don't think so. At least I don't care for it. I don't care. I treat everybody as equal.
Right.
Even those who have not done their LLB, when they come with us to court, we treat them as colleagues. We never introduce them as juniors or anything else.
Right.
No, these are colleagues, full stop. And especially if you have passed your LLB, you're a professional. How can I call you a junior?
Right.
It's just the fellows who want some sort of an ego trip that I've got 10 juniors around me.
Mhm. Agree. So, is there anything that bothers you, or something, about the legal system?
Muskan, you have a brother too, right?
Yes.
Do you and your brother agree with everything your parents say?
No, sir.
No. So, does that answer your question? There are
Yes.
going to be shortcomings in everything.
Right.
And I personally believe, see, very fortunately, touch wood, I have maybe lost 2 cases in 14 years. And
Mhm.
as I told you, some. Anyway, if I had lost each and every case in 14 years, I would say the judicial system is not.
Right.
If I keep on winning, I'll say the judicial system is good.
Mhm.
It's as simple as that.
Right.
See, if you have a bad case,
Mhm.
or if you do not argue your case properly,
Mhm.
a lot of people I know, it's a flim flam job. I'm
Right.
very happy when my opponents are flim flam. I'm extremely happy.
Mhm.
You cannot blame the judicial system
Right.
when you try to fool the court, which a lot of people, they openly tell me, no, we will lie in the court.
Right.
And then you get caught. You deserve to lose.
Right.
Like I told you about that forged document.
Mhm.
I gave the money back, the fees I gave back to the client. And
Mhm.
I said, I might have lost, but you deserve to lose.
Wow.
Please take your papers and go.
Right.
So when things like that happen, I think you need to be, I literally returned each and every paisa.
Right. So, are there any morals and principles that you carry in practice that are
The thing is,
personal to you?
Muskan, if you come to me with a case,
Mhm.
and 90% are property cases, if you come to me with a case, what
Mhm.
is the first thing I'll do? For 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I'll talk, chit chat with you, 19 to the dozen, and
Mhm.
all sorts of things, weather, rain, COVID, whatever it is, masks, put you at ease. Then my first question will be, so you have a problem.
Mhm.
What is it that you want at the end of the day?
Right.
And you will say, my brother has taken over my property and he's not giving it back to me. It is mine.
Mhm.
So I will say, fair enough. That means at the end of the day, you want the property which you think is yours.
Right.
And your brother has taken it from you. Now I will ask you a few other questions and I'll ask you, why do you think it is? This is a
Right.
very important question which once they found out during cross-examination.
Right.
It, it, I was getting nowhere in the cross-examination. We were just rambling along. Then suddenly I asked the question. I said, "Why do you think it is so?" And
Right.
the witness tells me because my auntie told me.
Mhm. Right.
Now, obviously, obviously, then I found. I knew the case. It had come to me about 5 years into the thing. It was just dragging on, and
Mhm.
I knew the background, and I realized that the auntie had set this woman up solely because the auntie did not want to fight it, but if she won, the auntie would in effect win.
Oh, right.
While this woman was fighting for 25% of the case.
Hmm.
If the auntie had won, this woman would have got only 4%.
Right.
So I explained to her, I said, don't you realize what you are doing? So these sort of things happen all the time. So you got to ask. Now I would ask you, why do you think your brother has grabbed your property and why do you think it is yours and not his?
Right.
So you'd have to give me a few answers. We chat for a half an hour or an hour, whatever it is. And then I'd say, just leave your name, telephone number, email address, this, that, and the other. I hope you're computer savvy, etc., etc. Then I said, shall we meet after 3 or 4 days? And then my colleague and I would sit down together, make some small notes, and try to figure out what it is.
Right.
You might have brought some papers with you, so I asked you to just leave the photocopies, not the originals, leave them with me, and then I'd phone you up, or my colleague would phone you up, and she would ask you that, look, Muskan, this is this, this is this. Do you have this paper with you? Do you have that paper with you? And after 3 or 4 days, we'd make a small draft. In the meantime, I'd ask you to send me a chronology.
Right.
I'd say, Muskan, how old are you, Muskan?
I'm 19.
How old are you?
I'm
19. So, Muskan, I'd say that, well, since you're 19, for the last 9 years, at least you would know what's going on in the family.
Right.
So, from the day you realized that there was this property and that you had a claim to it, would you please make a chronology as to whom the property belonged to? How did it come into the family? Who bought it? Who sold it? How was it partitioned? All sorts of things.
Right.
So, I would like a chronology of that up till today.
Mhm.
Now, I have asked you these questions, so my colleague and I will sit down and, you know, each of us will be arguing with the other. One will be sort of the plaintiff, the other will be the defendant. And we'll argue amongst ourselves to try and find out the thread.
Right.
And it might be that what you have told us is not correct and that you have no case.
Right.
So we tell you that, look, this is it. If you go to court, very doubtful that you will win. But of course, they don't like to hear that. Everybody thinks that they think that if you come to a lawyer, you are going to, like a doctor, going to give you medicine and cure you.
Right.
But they don't realize that there's another person that we have to compete with.
Right.
Not a bug. The other person might be worse than COVID.
Right.
So it's difficult, and they've got brains of their own. They've got intelligence. They might be 10 times more intelligent than we are. So we explain to them. Some of them don't like it and walk away, fair enough. The others, even if it is a dicey case, we tell them that, look, it's dicey, but this is how we will fight it. And usually we will. Usually we will. We don't lose patience as such. But there are some, I remember once a fellow came over to us. Our office is at home, so we were sitting there at home. Fellow comes over to us and says that I am the owner of a property. After 10 minutes, my wife says, would you like a cup of tea? She got him a cup of tea. She says, I'm a tenant. She brings in a big bag, plate full of biscuits. By that time, he had become a licensee.
Right.
So I have tempted. He says, I am not going to leave this room. The next time I come into this room, you'll be an unauthorized occupant.
Right.
People come to you with this sort of a story. Now it is your duty to get to the bottom of the thing. And when he came to that and we realized he was an we openly told him, do you genuinely think that you should be taking away property that belongs to the landlord?
Right.
That we genuinely think that. Some people, they have a property as a tenant, protected tenant under the Rent Act, and they also have ownership rights.
Right.
They want to have the best of both worlds. So we tell them, the Rent Act is meant for you to have a roof over your head. It's not for you to make money.
Right.
And you should not be. Sometimes some person says, I want to teach that fellow a lesson.
Right.
No, difficult times. I said, why do you want to teach him and what lesson do you want to teach him? Right. No, I want to teach him a lesson. What lesson do you want to teach him?
Right.
then we politely listen to them. It's almost like a psychology session. They pour their hearts out, they say all sorts of things. They bring out some paper or the other. Newspaper mein likha hai aisa.
Right.
We are here to fight cases. We are not here to fight.
Right.
No, I'll pay you whatever you want. I said, that makes it all the more difficult for us. If you have a case, yes, but we don't want to fight people. That's not our business.
Right.
And of course, obviously, they go somewhere else and spend a lot of money, and the cases just drag on for years. So I personally believe that at least 50, 60, 70% of cases are bogus cases. People have the money to go to court, they have the time to go to court. And this being a free country, everybody has the right to sue.
Right.
I would not want it the other way, by the way. I want it to be that way, that people must have the right to sue.
Right.
Otherwise, people will be going to gundas and dons to settle matters.
Right.
I remember, I think the Justice of somebody, Chief Justice of India, I forget, but in a lecture he had distinctly said that if you think that there are so many cases pending in courts, I am personally very happy.
Right.
People come to court because they have faith in the system. Otherwise, they would be going to gundas and dons.
Right.
They would be going to extrajudicial. So don't say that there are so many cases. You should be happy that people have faith. Because if you didn't have faith in the courts, you would not come. Okay, it might take 2 years, 3 years, but you have faith in the system, and that is why you come to court.
Right.
But then there are so many people who have faith in the system to prolong matters.
Right. So, do you have any ideal or a person that you look up to, or did you look up to when you were in the starting of your practice?
I'm glad you asked that question because any chance I do get, I'd like to perpetuate the memory of those people.
Right.
See, I'm 79, so obviously I've lost a lot of friends and colleagues. 2 or 3 of them, of course, Mr. Doria is 4 years younger than I. So, I mean, he's almost retired. I'm still in practice.
Right.
He has been very helpful. Extremely sharp memory. His father was a doctor, and I'd become almost a friend of the family. Almost every week I'd have breakfast with them at their home and all that. Dr. Doria once told me that Bharat's memory is far better than Walkiwala's. And even today, Mr. Doria, if I ring him up, he will give me a citation of the cuff.
Right.
Even today.
Okay.
He's given me a lot of books. There are still, he rang me up a few days back and said, I've got a lot of other books for you too. Books ranging from Privy Council and the princely states in Gujarat, maybe 100-year-old judgments.
Wow.
He reads Gujarati very well. So these are the things that we discuss, and it adds to our knowledge. It adds to our knowledge. And then there was his, well, again, I'm going to use the word senior, but he was much older than me, Girish Bhai Desai. His father was the registrar of the High Court. Girish Bhai's podcast was superb. That case that I was telling you about in 1984. Interesting. The plaint was filed on the 15th of April. And the date was during the vacation, the 17th of May.
Right.
Papers were served to me at 9:30 at night on the 15th. That means 2 nights in a day. 17th, at what time? 2 o'clock or something in the afternoon, 2:30 when the court opened. I don't remember. I'm not an advocate. So at that time, you hardly have. Remember 1984, when photocopies had to be done in that box, and to print photographs used to take 24 hours.
Wow.
It was that. It's what you have today is not what we had in 84. I'm talking about 26 years ago. 9:30 at night, the plane was served on me.
Okay.
Now I rang up Mr. Doria and I said, these papers have come. And I could have refused, saying that please come in the morning. He says, take them and bring them over.
Okay.
That whole night we worked. Now, mind you, we didn't have any paper. It had come as a, in spite of hiding the papers on the 15th of April, the date given was 17th of May. They could have easily served me the plane 1 month earlier.
Right.
But the opposite person was an ex-presidency magistrate. So he knew what to do.
Right.
The whole of that night, Mr. Doria and I worked. Get this paper, get that paper. I went home, started rifling through everything, tried to get as much as I could. The second night also we did not sleep.
Right.
Now it's the 17th morning. Somehow or the other we got the photographs. So that time there was film. So we had to get the film developed, printed,
Right.
no photocopying. Everything was typed. So we had 3 or 4 copies. And just half an hour before we had to appear in court, all the papers were bunched together and we went in. The other side was literally laughing away that we would be in a fix and that the interim injunction would be given.
Right.
Now this is how Mr. Desai, it was fantastic watching him. He walked into court with a bunch of papers. They folded, that time they used to fold the briefs. Walked into court with the briefs and gave the green copy to the judge.
Right.
The other side asked for their copy. You know what Mr. Desai said? You didn't give me time to prepare your copy. I don't have one.
Right.
So I got my copy, there's one for the judge. I don't have your copy. You should have given me time. You gave me less than 2 days.
Right.
I don't have your copy.
Wow.
He made them fight blindly. Then he told the judge that, we got it at 9:30 at night day before yesterday. The judge realized what was going on. And the opponent was a presidency magistrate, so everybody knew. Then he takes these photographs, a bunch of photographs which we just developed and printed. And he looks at them as if he's looking at he's playing poker. He looks at those photographs, turns them down and passes them face down to the judge.
Okay.
The judge picks them up this way and looks at the photographs, puts them back, passes them to Mr. Desai.
Right. Wow. Wonderful.
Mr. Desai made those people fight in the dark,
Right.
blind. And they realized that things were slipping away, so they started fighting amongst themselves. 10-15 minutes later, this was the pronouncement of the judge. I remember it verbatim.
Right.
If you want to enter upon the terrace, you can build a dozen staircases, but don't build them without the permission of the BMC, that is the Bombay Municipal Government.
Right.
And having built them, do not step onto the terrace without Bapoo's permission. Full stop. That was the end of the case. 24 years, they did not come to court again.
Wow.
Finally, we got the order in, I think, 2006. 24 years, they did not come to court.
Right.
Dragged on. So this is how Mr. Desai won the case in 10 or 15 minutes. Oh, by the way, while going out, he gave them a copy. Here's your copy.
Right. Oh God. Wow. Such wonderful people. So you've had the pleasure to
You
meet.
don't see that sort of photograph today. All you see is big lectures. No, these fellows said very little, but they did a lot.
Right.
There was another excellent advocate, Mr. Vijay Kulkule, crime law. Fantastic in crime law. I think today is September. It'll be, I think, in a few days, it will be 3 years since he passed away. Fantastic as an advocate. Every time he wasn't keeping well, so whenever I used to pass his house after the court, I would drop in and discuss matters with him.
Right.
Even though most of them were civil matters, he would give ideas, and if when we discussed, we came across something that was new, he would say, Bapu, go ahead and do it. He would never argue. He would, just because he was, many years more experienced than I, he would not argue. He would say, yeah, go ahead and do it. Let's see.
Right.
That was the sort of encouragement we got from him.
Right.
He was in practice for maybe 50 years. I was in practice at that time for not even 5 or 7 years.
Right.
But he would say, and he would really give you confidence. So this was a boost. Because unfortunately, when I see people, youngsters these days, they are not really boosted, or in fact, elders try to push them down.
Right.
They talk to them so uncivilly in court, they shout at them, they ask for papers, and if the papers are not available, they make a racket, make a scene. I'm extremely upset, because how can you build up a young lawyer's confidence if you're going to treat them like that in court? And in court, this happens in court.
Right.
It's but these were great guys. I mean, the way they used to fight cases was fantastic. You don't see them anymore.
Right.
I mean, nowadays, you see, my lord, if I may make my humble submission.
Right.
You know what that means? The fellow is stuck for an idea. He's thinking.
Right.
Those guys never thought. They had everything on the tip of the tongue, at their fingertips. Their minds were active all the time. But now you'll find this. May I have your attention, my lord? Oh,
Right.
in my humble opinion, may I say?
Right.
Hiding time. They don't know what to do.
Right.
At that time, what would you do? Narang, what would you do?
Sir, at that point of time, thinking about, they are just trying to buy time, sir. So they are just trying to,
What would you do?
as
As an opposing lawyer, what would you do?
so I
As
would,
their own junior, you can't say anything, and they'll get angry. But as an opposing lawyer, what would you do?
sir, maybe like,
That point, it's on page 42. Just say that point, it's on page 42. I think it's on page 42.
right.
It starts referring to page 42 and actually
Right.
it's not there.
It will actually form a good opinion in the judge that you are well versed with the facts and everything, and he is not.
Yes, because it shows him off very badly in court.
Right.
That
Right.
he's not covered with the facts, and the opposing lawyer says page 42, so he looks up page 42.
Right. Wow. Okay, because he's shuffling through the papers when he is saying all this. He's
That
shuffling
is
through.
not on page 42. You just
Right.
pulled a fast one on it. I think it's on page 42. You haven't said it's on page 42. I think
Right.
it's on page 42. So at that moment, you are keeping the fellow off balance. And by that time, his whole argument is lost. He has
Wow.
got nothing to
Beautiful.
argue.
Such a
Now, these are
strategy.
the sort of things that we learn from the old guys,
Right.
which you will not learn today.
Right. Wow. So,
So as you asked me, it is theatre.
right, it is for
Small
sure.
thinking on your
Talking with you has been a little intimidating because I've never had this perspective that it's going to be, you've had a lot
I
of.
mean,
No, no. So the
you
thinking about being in litigation, and you have to do so much, and you have to gain that experience. You have to be on top of your game all the time. So that
yes,
thing is
likewise, you got to be on top of the game.
right.
Yes, you got
So
to.
that
When
thought
you
of itself is a little intimidating. So that is why I'm going out with a lot of thoughts from this conversation that what I have to do in the future and everything is going to be a planned thing now. So thank you so much for this conversation, sir. I didn't want this to end, but maybe we can have another session in the future.